Hey guys, Buckcat7 here. Okay, it is Thursday, September 3rd, 2020, and I want to thank you for visiting the Stonewall Research Channel here on YouTube. I really do appreciate it. Alright guys, well this video is an addendum really to my last video, The Amazing Earthworks of the Adena and Hopewell, where we looked at the illustrations done by Squire and Davis as they researched these things back in the early 1800s to mid 1800s when they published their book in 1948. And I think I'm getting through to people, but I'm not sure because it's very hard, I find, to dispel all these ideas that people have gotten from mainstream academics, the History Channel, George Norrie, these alternative researchers who have their own sort of, fantastic, completely fictional reasoning behind all of these things and some fantastic ideas and all this kind of stuff and sort of biases that we have, and we all have biases. I mean, even I do. I try to empty my mind of all these programming that we've had. The History Channel, that's a program on TV that's programming you to think in a certain way. And I'm trying to dispel these things. I wish people would just empty their minds of all their thoughts about these things. And the point I was really making in the last video was that we have to think of these things on a more practical level. These people did things on a very practical level. Obviously, they did all the things that we did on a practical level, right? They kissed their kids and their mothers and their wives goodbye when they left home. They went to the bathroom and they wiped their rear ends and, cleaned themselves and wore clothes and, chopped wood, whatever it is. I mean, they did a lot of things that we do as people. Okay, whether they be giants, the Adena giants, or the average height people, Hopewell, who lived in this contemporary society. Okay, so look, we have to think along these lines and not so much of the archaeoastronomy and astronomy and astronomical alignments and ceremonial and spiritual things. These things were not necessarily built. Do you think everything was built with that in mind and things weren't built for practical purposes? I mean, begs credulity to think like that. I mean, obviously, it's either a combination of the two or just one or whatever it is. But we're going to take another look at an illustration by Squire and Davis. I covered it in the previous video, but we're going to take another look at it again because I'm not sure I'm getting my point home, and I'm going to use my formal training, my formal academic training in engineering and architecture to take a look at these things, okay? And I'm going to tell you exactly what these areas that were constructed are all about, okay? And just get all that stuff and stop watching the History Channel. Stop listening to all the goofball guests on George Norrie's Coast to Coast and everything, and just tell you anything. Just make up stuff off the top of their head. Okay, so I know people are constantly concerned with the astronomical alignments and everything else. I mean, in this article here by this James Q. Jacobs, he's looking at the geodetic properties. So he's taking all sorts of measurements, and Squire and Davis took all sorts of measurements and everything else. Okay, he's looking for the magnetic field lines, ley lines, the shape of the Earth, and relative position in the solar system. All this stuff concerns itself with geodetic properties and geodesy. Okay, the geodesic properties. This is one of these guys who's an alternative researcher who's providing these pictures here, okay, looking into the geodetic properties of it, okay? Maybe it has it, maybe it doesn't, okay? Because, I mean, you can see by these illustrations, okay, where these square or rectangular areas are located, okay, relative to the cardinal points. Okay, these are all within the same general area. Okay, the Paint Creek area there. Okay, so all right, so Paint Creek works in Ross County. Okay, so you see all the square areas. Okay, Are there astronomical alignments involved with this? Okay, these maps are drawn all relative to the cardinal points. It's north, south, east, west. Okay, what is the position of these squares? You can't say anything about the circles. The circles are 360 degrees. They could be an observational point for anything. Okay, so we're only concerning ourselves with the relative location of the square areas or the rectangular areas to the cardinal points. Okay, if they were aligned specifically to one specific thing, wouldn't you think they would all be in a relatively same position relative to the cardinal points? Okay, they're in different, pointing in totally different directions. Okay, so you can pretty much rule out astronomical alignments and all this kind of other stuff. Okay, it's very romantic to think about all these ideas and everything. Okay, but let's get it back to the earth. Okay, back to ground level. All right, and we're just thinking the practical purpose of these things. Okay, we know that the Adena and Hopewell had this vast trading network, 3,000 miles one way in the center there, 1,500 miles wide was their entire civilization and culture over there. All right. Now, these things were thought, because of the way that they're designed, because of the elements, the design elements in them, the security design elements in them. Okay. They were thought to be forts. Okay. But why would you need a fort? Okay. Within the internal part of your giant civilization. Okay, and no evidence of any external enemy while looking at these cultures, other than some people died from some violence or whatever, but that could be all internal. Okay, the different point that I'm making that nobody else is making is that it was concerned with internal security, not external security. You don't need a high security fortress, which it obviously wasn't, with these low earthen berm type walls, not even stone walls, just earthen walls that people could run right up and run right down. This is not high level security. But if people are on the honor system and they expected to behave and obey the rules and everything, then this would be a medium security level thing, which would suggest internal security. This is what I'm going on about. All right. It's not astronomical alignments and astronomy and the spiritual thing and, religious and blah, 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 blah. It's not. Those are the ideas you're going to get on the History Channel, mainstream textbooks, and all the cockamamie authors that write all these books and have their fantastic fantasies written in all of them about what goes on. Okay. We're trying to keep it down to a practical, pragmatic level. Okay. People using these things for practical purposes. Okay, so you have the small circle here and a large circle here with a lot of openings in it. Okay, some of these have openings in it, some of them don't. Could these openings be put on in a later date? And maybe these were closed circles. I don't know, but it's quite possible. Okay, and if they weren't, if they were all closed like these ones over here, then that would be even more security measures. Okay, in a free society of peoples, you don't have a lot of security. You have medium security or whatever, but of course, you have to always be careful about internal security. Okay, especially when you're dealing with hundreds or thousands of types of goods, including maybe even people. Somebody suggested slaves or animals. These people certainly kept animals. They kept turkeys. They kept rabbits. They kept llamas, and probably a variety of other things. They were managing fish and all this kind of other stuff. Okay, and they didn't overhunt their areas. They knew in a second. This is why they say they were wearing linen clothing. Okay, this is in the mainstream article that they found him wearing these linens, which doesn't seem to excite anybody in the comments or anything like that. Well, that's very unusual. Okay, they thought these people were running around in animal skins and all, and they weren't. Okay, that's some assumption that they made that they were wrong about. What other assumptions that are they wrong about? Okay, and they just happen to be coincidences or whatever. Okay, so if I have this full 360 degrees circle per observation, why would I put these things on the outside? Another square of it. I would want this all clear for observation. Okay, let me tell you what these things are from my own experience. Okay, my formal training in engineering and architecture, city planning, community planning, security elements and structures, etc., just like we have today. when we build our structures, all those elements are built into these structures. Okay, somebody comes in, a security expert, and looks at the planning or whatever, and they have that sort of planning in mind and design the buildings to reflect that. Okay, no different here. All right, real simple. Okay, follow me. All right, the small circle area. All right, administrative. Okay, large circle area. Okay, is general assembly, square area, fortress type, medium security area. Okay, this is the trading area. The square area is the trading area. It could be very well that all these contingencies. What do you think? They just brought like a couple of shells in their pocket and they walked along with a buddy from 1,000 miles away? No, they're bringing in vast quantities of these goods, similar to that of the stone walls of New England, where the Iroquois just happened to be most recently in our historical timeline, okay, where they have a confederation there, people who live in the mountainous areas where you can hardly grow anything. If you have hundreds of thousands of people there where you could hardly grow anything, well, you need food, okay? You could overhunt your area in a second, folks. I can tell you, these people were not eating red meat for good reason, okay? And if they did, it was highly ceremonial and unusual for them to do this, okay? They're apparently not wearing animal skins, they're wearing cloth, textiles, okay, which they shouldn't be, okay? Where'd they get that technology from? Okay, so look, all right, it's real simple. Administrative area, general assembly area, trading area. Okay, could these things be used for astronomical alignments and observation and ceremonial? Of course they could. Just like any arena we have today. Okay, like I said, you can see Joel Osteen one day there, and then the next day you can have the ice follies or whatever it is. Okay, so look, when you build a large thing like this, you want to put it to use. All right. And they just so happen to have this large trading area, okay, network, okay, that spans thousands of miles, thousands of different types of goods and things. And you could include many other things that we don't know about. Okay. So, look, I want to know if people are getting it or not, but if the default position is what you've heard already on a History Channel or from all these cockamamie authors and the mainstream, which are apparently are clueless or just getting a clue now, because all of this archaeology and anthropology has been ignored, okay, for the past 200 years here in this country. Okay, whereas all the archaeology around the world has been done again, 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 because it's far more interesting because they consider that the old world. On my channel here, I don't consider the new world the old world. The new world, I consider it the old world. And the rest of the world is the new world, okay? Just the opposite, okay? These are the kind of ideas you get on my channel, but for good reason, okay? I give evidence for as much, okay? Whether it's written in books like Charles C. Mann's book, okay, about the age of some of these societies in the Americas being 20,000 years old, 30,000 years old, they're saying maybe Samaria isn't the cradle of civilization. Okay, they're saying it, not me. That's mainstream, right? Because what are they're finding here? Okay, again, people, you have to think about the practical use of what's going on there. Okay, these are Stone Age Amazon fulfillment centers, okay? It's just like the Iroquois I was saying before, the Haudenosaunee, which is their real name. Iroquois is a French name for them, but that's not their name. The Haudenosaunee, a confederation of tribes, okay? When the people in the deforested sections where they purposely deforested it, okay, so they could grow their maize, you know, tens and hundreds of square miles of maize, apparently, is given by eyewitness accounts of some of these Haudenosaunee villages, okay? They deforested the whole, well, they need wood. Where are they getting wood from? Well, they're getting it from their confederation partner, okay? Who lives in the mountainous, densely forested areas, okay? Who do you think they just shipped them a log and they shipped them back a bushel of corn for 20,000 people or something like that? No. They shipped back thousands of bushels of corn and thousands of hectares of wood and timber were going to those people. They needed it. Every day they needed wood to burn for fires and everything else. Okay, summer or winter, didn't matter. Winter more. And to build whatever things they were building with them. Okay, so look, whatever way you want to slice it, okay, you have to have a high level of organization, okay, to make these kinds of things happen on the scale that they needed them to happen on. Okay, you just can't pull up with a truck like they do in Starving End, and instead of people waiting in line, a million people come over and grab sacks of rice. They didn't have that going on. Okay, they wanted to keep everything square. Okay, you have people coming in from out of town with their goods or whatever. Well, you better make sure they have a secure place to stay and keep their stuff. All right, so you got to think about it on these terms. Stop thinking about all the astronomical alignments and spiritual shit, okay? Just get that crap out of your head, okay? This is the kind of shit they've been talking about for 40, 50, 60, 100 years, okay? Because they can't make sense out of things, all right? Start thinking in practical terms, then you can figure out what these things are about, all right? When you start drifting off into fantasy, well, you could propose anything. You could suppose anything. Okay, they never figured out. They found all these hieroglyphs and everything with these Adena people and the mouse and everything. Did they ever bother figuring out what all those things are? For all we know, can tell us all about it if they bothered to figure it out, but they're not gonna. Okay, we're trying to figure it out. Before we start jumping up into space and angels and Anunnaki and Nephilim and, crystals and spiritualism and the Indians are just sort of these, peaceful, hippie type people, whatever, then, well, I'm sorry, it's not like that because the people at Galena Canyon were genocided by the native peoples that were in the area there. Okay? And the giants weren't cannibals either. Okay, they were the aristocracy for the Hopewell people. At least the Adeno were. And that's probably the dynamic that's been going on for thousands of years in the past. And we can see evidence of it today. And then Watusi and the chiefs of the Fiji Islands, the same dynamic going on. Look, it's clear as day. It's common sense, but sense is not so common anymore, I guess. Okay? Stop thinking in all of these fantastic terms that you got from the History Channel or Fritz Zimmerman and L.A. Marzulli and George Norrie and, mainstream quacks like Ken Fader and Robert Thorson and Susan Allport and all this kind of shit. They don't know what they're looking at. All right? And I say this about the stone walls. This is my original idea. I got a lot of original ideas based on hard research, okay? And expertise in certain fields, all right? The closed areas and the walled areas in the Northeast is just, at a glance, you can tell what it is. They're 2 or 3 feet high. You and I could come right over it. Sheep and goats can go right over it. It's not keeping livestock. It has no opening in the walls. They have no openings. Well, what is it saying to you? I'm telling you what it says, okay? In a society where you're asked to act and obey the rules. You're supposed to comport yourself in accordance with the rules, okay? A closed-in wall area with no opening is real simple. Authorized personnel only. Real simple, okay? And the design elements that you can see here are simple, very similar to design elements we would have when we design a school, say. Okay, administrators, general assembly, business area where you might be doing learning or whatever it is. I'm just saying these design elements of architecture are universal and ubiquitous. They've been with us, and that's why we have them. Okay, it's no different here. Doesn't matter how many acres it covers. You need acres and acres when you got all these people and their contingencies coming from all over North America and probably even South America and probably even from overseas. Okay, where'd all that copper go from Michigan? 500 million pounds of it. Where'd it go? They didn't find it here. Where is it? Okay, look, guys, you're talking about importing and exporting on a giant scale, a gigantic scale, okay? You're going to need the organization and security efforts to go along with it. Start thinking like this. Stop thinking all of these fantastic ideas. I know they're very attractive. They're very romantic. Okay, often the truth is a wet blanket. Okay, if they didn't sensationalize every news story, they'd have no story. Okay, man bites dog, whatever it is. Okay, they got to write up 10 paragraphs on it to make it interesting for you, but it's all baloney. It's all fluff. Okay, so get all the History Channel bias and crap that you learned in school and everything out of your head. Start with a fresh head. Start with fresh eyes to see these things. Okay, these square things are not aligned simultaneously with each other together because that's not part of what this is. Astronomical alignments don't enter into it. Okay, spirituality, maybe, I guess it's a dual use or something, but maybe, you ever think of this, maybe it had nothing to do with spiritual ceremonial things at all. Is that possible? It's probably more probable than possible. Okay, because I'm telling you what these design elements in these things suggest to me, and highly suggest that I could get anybody in that field of discipline. Okay, like the guy who's from the University of Texas who went down and looked at the Mayan temples there and said, wait a second, this doesn't really make any sense. Okay, well, all these astronomical alignment thingies and ceremony things don't make any sense to me. I see a practical purpose of this repeated over and over again. Administrative area, General Assembly, trading, medium security trading area, all these berms and everything, you can run right over it. There's no security there. They're not forts or whatever, like mainstream says. All right? Stop it already. All right? Start empty your mind of all that crap before you take a look at this stuff. And come up with your own conclusion. Use your own mind. Just don't parrot out like a parrot, repeat everything you hear from somebody else. Use your own mind. I'm using my own mind. I'm trying to figure this out. From a practical standpoint, simple as that. Could it be dual use as ceremonial, spiritual, astronomical? Sure, it could. But dual use, okay? We're concentrating on the practical aspects of these things, okay? Not all that hairy-fairy crap, all right? That's a different discussion that we've heard a million times already. This is the first time you're hearing about this. Okay, if you heard it on the History Channel or George Norrie or in your textbook, well, you can pretty much throw that right in the garbage. Okay, they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're looking at. Okay, before they even came to the conclusion that the Adena and Hopewell were contemporaries living in this socially dynamic relationship between giants and normal sized people. I already figured that out before they even did the archaeological study there in Indiana. Okay, it's real simple, guys. We have the evidences here now. Okay, these people may have been different than us in many ways, but in other ways, they were quite similar and similar in their thinking and their thoughts. Okay, you have a vast trading network with lots of goods or whatever. Well, you got to ensure the security of those goods. I don't care what you say. Trading relationships, any trading relationships, has based on the ability to keep them secure. Don't trust what I'm saying. Okay, you want to look that up in economics and history and everything else, you'll find out every single civilization in the past had these relationships. Once a trading relationship was established, all of these security issues came into mind. Okay, any sort of trading. All right, I'm sorry, a lot of people haven't gone to college or maybe took different courses in college or whatever it is. Okay, but look, this is just quite common to all civilizations who establish trading relationships. The security issues are paramount to ensure the flow of goods once your society is hooked on them. Don't you get it? Just like today. Okay, and we see what happens when countries are starved for resources, ready to go to war. Okay, you have to ensure the flow of goods. Okay, now you're talking about a large civilization. Well, you only have internal security to worry about. You don't have to worry about the external security. There may be issues with that, but it's not handled by these things are not forts. And if they were forts, they wouldn't be good as forts. Because anybody could get into them and easy as pie. A kid could get in there. Okay? So, look, just dispel yourself of all the assumptions of the past by whoever it was, mainstream, History Channel, all the cockamamie book gurus and all that kind of stuff, and start looking at this thing with fresh eyes, with an empty head of all that stuff and a fresh head. Okay? All right? That's all I'm asking, okay? I'm trying to clue you in on this stuff. You've never heard any of this stuff before, but I see when I talk to people and whatnot that their default value is all the shit that was said already. 100 freaking times, 1,000 times, thousands of times, all right? We're trying to figure this out. We got to start looking at throwing some different ideas at it, okay? So we can get a better understanding of it. We heard all those hackneyed ideas. Nobody can figure out anything, okay? Trying to figure it out for you. And this is what it's all about. I'm telling you, trading was paramount to every society that ever existed in the past. Because there's other people around. All right? Think about it. All right? This is the point I was trying to make in the last video there. Because I made this point about the fort, the old stone fort in Kentucky. Okay? So I just wanted to parlay that into a little bit further understanding of it, and this video to clarify my position. Okay, so look, guys, I'm not, I don't want to make anybody feel bad or anything like that, but look, you gotta start looking at these things differently, man. You just gotta. Okay, the only way we're gonna figure out what went on in the past is people come up with fresh, new ideas, not the stuff we've been hearing for decades and decades and decades. Okay, whatever it is, mainstream or alternative, they don't know what they're talking about. We're just beginning to understand all this stuff now. And going through the giants, okay, the quote unquote giants or large hominids, should be providing you with some clues about how these people lived and what they were doing. All right? Okay, so look at these things. They're not in the same general relative locations to the cardinal points. So it's not astronomical alignments. And if you say, well, it's alignment, it could be anything. The sky is filled with stars. You can point at anything on the ground and say, well, this is aligned with that. Of course you could. In a 360 in a circle, you could be aligned with anything. But why would you put, if you're doing astronomical alignments and observations, why would you break your circle and put all these other things on there? Okay? So, look, guys, stop going with the sort of fantastic notions that you've heard before by whoever, even the mainstream, okay? We are figuring this out together on this thing because we're looking at it with a fresh head and fresh eyes, all right? Just forget about it. Turn off George Norrie and Coast to Coast. Turn off the History Channel. Take the textbooks and use them in kindling in the fire, tear them up, throw them in the garbage, because you're not going to get anything of value from any of that stuff. But you are going to get a lot of value trying to figure out what's going on here on your own. And not just parroting and repeating everything you've ever heard before. All right? About everything on my channel, okay? My channel focuses on such different ideas and even an alternative. And that's why people don't want to hear it. It's like a wet blanket for them. They have all these, sappy, romanticized notions about the past and everything. They can't break free of all that stuff. For some reason, the programming is just embedded. It's been imprinted, embossed onto their, onto their brains. So etched. So anyway, guys, I hope that clarifies at least my position on this thing a little bit better. But again, it's real easy to see from the way these things were constructed what the intention was here, at least to me. All right. Anyway, if you like the video, please hit the like button. If you are not a subscriber, please do subscribe. And I hope to do a video on the Giants perhaps tomorrow. Giants International will be starting that, and that'll be a fascinating study in itself. All right, guys. Anyway, Budcat7 signing out. Peace.